All right, everyone. We are back this week. Welcome back to the We Shall Not Sleep podcast. I hope you all are doing well. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you are, however you may be listening. You can catch us wherever you listen to podcasts, including our YouTube channel and SoundCloud, where we are hosted. Email the show, any comments, suggestions, feedback at WSNS Podcast@gmail.com. So, with that out of the way, I wanted to turn our attention. I was going over Exodus 32 this past week with my congregation, and we were looking at this instance of the golden calf and how at this time the Israelites, after Joseph died, Exodus chapter 1, it says Joseph and all that generation, his brothers, died, and a new line of kings in Egypt rose up that did not know, nor did they seek to honor the prior agreement that Joseph and his people had with the Pharaoh at that time. And so what happens is that sometimes we forget. Sometimes the younger generations forget or neglect or just simply do not honor what has come prior, both for good and bad reasons, of course. And you have the Israelites that undergo this tumultuous journey of being slaves, being driven hard. Pharaoh at the time asked that all the Hebrew boys be killed because they're afraid that the amount of Hebrews will eventually outnumber the Egyptians. The Egyptians want to preserve their culture, so why don't you just kill all the men? Women can't get pregnant if there's no men around, and men are the ones who would be fighting. So you could just have a bunch of women that you can enslave, use as concubines, all these horrendous things. And everyone was jealous. The midwives helped deliver a lot of babies. And so the midwives end up disobeying Pharaoh's order, and Pharaoh's daughter ends up disobeying her own father and Pharaoh, the king, the god of Egypt, right? The order. And what ends up happening in the plague story is that God goes to battle, into war, with the other gods of Egypt. You have the God of the universe who's created everything competing with man-made objects. And this is something that we'll see a little bit later about this grotesque act of the Israelites who are at the foot of Mount Sinai, and Moses is being commanded to write down the tablets, or God writes the tablets the first time, rather. And what does it say? And what we end up seeing is that they end up violating it right at the base of Mount Sinai. And so after they experienced their God act on their behalf and basically slay the gods of Egypt, then lead them into the wilderness where he would provide for them, deliver them over the Red Sea, everyone witnesses this tremendous thing happen, this cloud that goes with them, that's guiding them. And in a place of desolation, God provides. Out of the desert, he still provides food and water, and the people complain. The people continue to doubt God. And then when Moses gives them strict instructions when they get to the foot of Mount Sinai, when the clouds, like the storm that hovered above the mountain, God's presence was there. He goes up and says, hey, basically be on your best behavior. Here are the instructions. Do not approach the mountain. Do not do anything. You are in God's presence. You're a human. Stay down here. And Moses goes up to commune with God. And after a while, we see in Exodus 32 that he was taking a sweet old time, according to the Israelites. And they turned to Aaron. They're like, hey, can you make us a god so we can worship, please? Now, even in the most liberal understanding, it's like, well, they weren't worshiping the thing. They were just wanting to have something represent God, just like they had known in Egypt. But that's the most liberal interpretation. They're still making an idol that is still nothing. And when when Moses intervenes and they have the conversation with God, which I don't think it's him changing his mind, it's just that God is inviting us into the conversation. He wants to have that type of intimacy with us. And when he gets back down and he looks at Aaron, I can just imagine his face like, oh, you idiots. And then Aaron goes, well, they asked for it. He basically just doesn't take accountability for anything. And Moses is so frustrated, he drops the tablets the tablets that God had written, out of anguish, he is so upset. And what you end up finding throughout all of this is that we are no different. We fall prey to this mentality all the time. What has God done for me lately? What have you done for me lately, Lord? And we look at our lives now, we picture a better one, and we think, well, why can't I just have that? And it's possible, yes, there are legitimate circumstances where, at least I would suggest, that God has given you the freedom and the liberty to better yourself. Like, how about just make better and wise decisions by consulting the Lord? Like, there is a two-way street here. So, like, part of it is like, are you impeding this life that you so desperately want? Are you impeding yourself? Would be my question. Are you the one responsible for this thing not happening in your life? And then maybe you're like, I'm actually really peaceful. I'm just looking for something else. Like for me, the burden for me is like, I am content mostly. What I get upset at is my lack of relationships sometimes. What I get impatient about is my lack of finding a wife at this point at 31 years of age. So I can picture that, and I desperately want that. That's what I earnestly desire, and yet that's not the timing yet for me. And I got to be okay with that. So these are all the things that I would ask us to consider. What are some other areas in our lives that we think to God, what have you done for me lately? We look at our entire lives, and yet we so easily forget. This can develop into the problems and the patterns in our relationships too. Does the lack of gratitude in our relationship to God also fuel our ingratitude in relationships? I would say yes, because everything, if you have a true relationship with God, what the fruit of like what we're taught is that ought to then like spill over into every aspect of the relationships that I have with other people. That's where the fruit comes from. Otherwise, it's like if I were to claim that my relationship with God is incredible, and my best of friends and my family would say I am unreliable, I am rude, I am quick-tempered, I am impatient, and I'm just not that all pleasant to be around, would you suggest that person has a good relationship with the Lord? Now, some people who are not godly minded might say, well, he's pretty high and mighty, or he just I don't like to hang out with him because he's a goody two shoes or whatever. Those are different motivations. I'm asking us to all have an adult understanding about this. Like, this is pretty clear, I think, what I'm talking about. Like, can people tell that you're a Christian by the way you live your life, by the words that you use, and how you treat others, and how much gratitude you have? So gratitude comes from a place of humility, understanding that none of this is because of me. Trust me. Like, when it comes to my relationships, I've talked about it here. Like, I've had the privilege of having fallen in love before, and yet that was not the situation God had in store. So instead of going, well, what have you done for me lately, God? At least I had something like that to look back on, saying, you know what, I don't think God would have allowed me to have that feeling if that was never something He ever wanted me to do. Because in my instance, we weren't living in sin. It wasn't like, I just fell in love, but we were holy about it. It wasn't something there was no sexual relations there. And so, like, trying to live that out, but it's like, man, I just thought it just worked. It just was the natural. It was every testimony that I've ever heard about relationships were. So I'm saying that as an example that was not something I went seeking for. Like every other most fulfilling thing that I've ever experienced, whether it was pastoring my church, the school, that opportunity I have now, the relationship I have with my parents, the relationship I have with my friends now, this home church that I've been a part of, all these extracurriculars, like deepening friendships and everything that you find satisfaction in, are all centered around Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit working. Them taking that, like God using them to bless me, instead of me, for example, trying to chase the high of that love that I had, which I did for a couple years, by like, I'm going to go pursue women. I'm going to go pursue them. And again, not in a sinful way. I'm still a virgin. Okay. I'm 31. I'm still a virgin. So I want to make clear here. Like, while the relationships I have, they never cross that line because I'm saving myself for marriage. And I only dated Christian women. And I would like to consider myself a gentleman. There's only room for improvement, of course. Not perfect by any means. And I did those ladies a disservice because what I couldn't fully articulate and work out is that I was looking for that other thing in them. And it's taken me a long time to articulate why I felt the way I did about that other person. And how now that's what I'm looking for in other people, those same traits of kindness. An example, like this person I was with, very kind, just genuinely kind, unselfish. Like, that's why I fell in love, because like that's the rare quality that Christian women that I admire the most. And so I say all of that because if I tried fabricating, if I tried to say, you know what, I'm doing all these things, I want said goal, I'm not getting it, it has to be God's fault. And in a one, that's rarely true. Two, if ever. And then two, I'm basically saying, yeah, but God, what have you done for me lately? Do you see how that works? So whatever life you picture, whatever you think it is, if it's better than what your life is now, regardless of what it is, whatever you're chasing, whatever that X factor would be to make, in your opinion, your life better, may I suggest that either one, you have a big role to play in that and making it better, and two, is that possibly leading to a life of ingratitude, an ungrateful heart and spirit? It's just something to be thinking about. Thank you for your consideration. May God bless you. May God keep you.